If you were going to think of a really truly badass, and I mean badass name for an NFL player, Kindle Vildor just sounds badass. Either sounds like one of those freaking Norse names that you would expect to see out of somebody from Asgard, or maybe somebody from Game of Thrones. Like, just sounds like a badass name. I wish, unfortunately, his 2019 game was the level of badass to match the badass name. So let's talk about the corner that the Bears selected in the 5th round out of Georgia Southern, the aforementioned Kindle Vildor. When I watched him, here was a guy that had quite a bit of attention in 2018. He was Sun Belt Conference Defensive Player of the Year. Coming in, he was, preseason Defensive Player of the Year. Like, he had a really good 2018. And, he's one of those names from a smaller school that you're keeping your eye on, you're thinking about, and you're wondering, like, okay, what's going to happen with him? Is this a guy that goes into his last college season and he plays really well again and he starts putting himself maybe into the day 2 conversation? Well, all that didn't happen. And as a result, he was there for the Bears in the 5th round. What stands out, though, in terms of what I like, other than his name, his quickness and speed. I wouldn't say he's special in terms of his quickness or certainly his speed, but I think he certainly has enough of it to stick at corner in the National Football League. It's kind of like a white guy, quicker than fast, if you will. No, I'm kidding. That's more of he surprises you with how fast he is. But he is quicker than fast. He gets to top speed quickly. He's not a true burner, even though he ran a pretty good 40 time at the combine. He's not a true burner. That doesn't necessarily manifest on tape. But he has enough athleticism, enough quickness, enough agility, enough speed to turn and run with most wide receivers in the National Football League. So if he doesn't make it in the slot or outside as a corner in the NFL, it's not going to be due to a lack of athleticism, that's for sure. That's going to be one of the traits that will help him in his transition. Also, his ability in man coverage. He's really effective in press coverage for a guy that's not that big. I actually thought it was pretty impressive. He's very good at shadowing wide receivers towards the boundary, dictating routes. Like, a lot that I liked about him in purely man coverage in terms of I don't have to think, I don't have to worry about responsibilities. It's just mano a mano. I've got to defend this guy. This is my responsibility. This is my bitch, and I'm going to make him my bitch on this play. That's where he's best. And I thought when he was in that type of role, and I think you saw that more in 2018 at Georgia Southern than in the defense in 2019, that's where he shined. That's where he really, really shined. His technique and footwork, I think he's got very good bend and balance in his back pedal. He's got sudden, powerful initial punch in terms of his press. Like, again, for a guy that's not all that big, 5'10", 190-something pounds, like, sometimes I talk about guys on film, they play smaller than they are, or guys play bigger than they are. I think in terms of press coverage, he plays bigger than he is. If you didn't know any better, you think he's 6 foot, 6'1", 200 pounds, not 5'10", 193. He's got really nice, fluid hips to be able to quickly turn in his back pedal and adjust and run with the receiver. And he matches all of that with tremendous ball skills. A really natural nose for locating the football. Very soft, natural hands. Can force some fumbles too. He can go after that ball. Like, now that he's going to be wearing 33 in Chicago, a lot of fans obviously are going to talk about the peanut punch, and they're going to be thinking about him in the same breath as Charles Tillman, and we need to pump the brakes and all that crap. But one thing that he does have very, very much in common with Peanut Tillman overall is those ball skills. His ball skills at the corner position are some of the very best in this entire draft class. Absolutely. And they're probably even a little bit better than Jalen Johnson's, and the Bears took him in the 2nd round. But the concern to me with Vildor is that his weaknesses are more striking and overwhelming as opposed to a Jalen Johnson. His instincts and awareness, where Jalen Johnson, I think, has really outstanding instincts for a college corner, especially a kid that was only there for 3 years. You're talking about Kindle Vildor. He looks uncomfortable and lost in zone on a pretty consistent basis, even in off-man coverage. He's slow to recognize running plays and slow to anticipate some routes. You watch him, and more often than not, you could see where the running play is going this way, and he's still looking at the quarterback. He doesn't realize the quarterback doesn't even have the ball anymore. Like, we don't have to sit there and overanalyze this sometimes. He looks lost on the football field, and it certainly as well carries over into the aforementioned zone coverage. His lack of instincts and feel really show up here. He gives up too much ground, looks uncomfortable playing off, loses his responsibility, has challenges and trouble kind of understanding and adjusting on the fly. Not the best in terms of communicating responsibilities with the safety. Really, really bad there, and it flashed at times in 2019 for sure. In terms of run support and tackling for a guy that's so good in press coverage, I'm just surprised. Similarly to Jalen Johnson, these guys are good in press coverage and really, really bad in run support. He doesn't attack the ball carrier. He misses a number of tackles due to poor technique. I think some of that, especially when you talk about the poor technique when it comes to tackling, you could potentially address. He doesn't attack the ball carrier almost in that business decision type of category, similar again to Jalen Johnson. That's the thing. That's about will, and that's about desire to get in there and mix it up. He had moments where he looked like he wanted to get in there and mess somebody up, but he had too many other chances where he just seemed like he was okay with letting the play go and letting the play finish out without sticking his nose in there and getting involved. And me personally, it's just not something I particularly like to see out of a defensive player. And then what really concerns me is some of the tape against the more notable opponents that he faced the past couple of seasons. Like, sure, people talk about his interception against Clemson in 2018, but in 2019, his LSU tape was atrocious. He gave up 3 touchdowns. He was bad. And you can say LSU did that to a lot of folks, sure. But, you talk about LSU offense, it's still a college offense. You'll see other NFL offenses with similar levels, if not greater, of talent. And he got lit up and torched consistently. His Minnesota tape was a little bit better, but certainly wasn't great. His Appalachian State tape, again, was only so-so to okay. Against some of the more notable quality opponents in 2019 especially, Vildor came up small. And maybe some of that was due to the ankle injury. Maybe he was protecting himself. I don't know. I refuse to believe that carried over for an entire season, but maybe it did, because there was certainly a downturn in his play from 2019 to 2018. Certainly was. Now, when you look at games like this, where I was talking about like Travis Gibson, I know it was Michigan State, but Gibson showed out really well against a notable opponent like Michigan State. Gave you enough flashes to say, oh, this dude might be better than the position where he was drafted. He looked like an NFL prospect. I looked at Kindle Vildor, and I said to myself, he looks like an XFL, CFL type of prospect in those games, which is not certainly something you want to see. Now, in terms of my overall thoughts on Vildor as a prospect, if he had better instincts and he was a better tackler, I think he'd be perfectly suited to play free safety. But the problem is he doesn't have either one of those, so he's not going to. He may be limited and restricted to primarily playing in man-up situations. Bottom line is he's going to have to get better in terms of the knowledge and instincts and feel and mental aspects of the defensive side of the ball, because it is lacking on a consistent basis, and it's really, really concerning. Now, if you tell him to go out there and you just man up against somebody, he has a puncher's chance for sure. You want him to start doing much more than that? That's where it can start to get concerning. That's where he can start getting lit up and torched all day long. His tackling has got to get better. His desire to get in there and mix it up. He's got to come to the NFL, frankly, with better technique and a little bit of a better fighter's attitude if he wants to stick or even be able to contribute and play special teams. Look, I see some of the upside there. And you like a guy that's good in man coverage, has really good ball skills. But that in and of itself doesn't mean that a guy's going to be able to stick at corner in the NFL. And you like to see guys at his size, under 6 foot, under 195 pounds, play with a little more chip on their shoulder and be a little more physical. And he wasn't. And it does concern me that his 2019 wasn't as good as his 2018. He was certainly a draftable prospect because there's enough there to work with. But I thought he was taken right about where he should have been. I don't think he was a reach or a steal. It's great that he can pick some balls off and make some plays on the ball, but it gives up a bunch of big plays. It kind of balances all out, doesn't it? I mean, realistically. I thought he was maybe a late 5th round pick at the best. So I'm not going to bury the Bears for drafting him here. Again, it felt like it was kind of in the right range, and I can certainly understand some of the elements that they saw in him. But it wouldn't surprise me if we're talking about Vildor in 2 or 3 years and he's not even on the roster anymore. It wouldn't surprise me in 2 or 3 years if we were talking about him and he was their slot corner. Like, it could go in either place, and you get that a lot with these day 3 picks. But based off of what I saw out of him, I don't know if I was impressed enough to say lock, stock, and barrel guaranteed that this guy's going to make much of an impact on the Chicago Bears defense in 2020 or beyond.